to me.
I think so. All right, Gene, tell me if you see it come on again, okay?
Yes, I see 4 recording icons on the host and co-host.
That's weird.
Does that mean it's being recorded 4 times or what?
I don't know what that means.
I don't think so. I think that any of them have the right to stop it. That's what I think it means.
Gotcha. So it's being recorded now,
Should be.
and I will mute and let the meeting get underway. Is everybody who needs to be a co-host a co-host?
I believe so.
Gary, are you going to be in the meeting? If so, would you be able to periodically check the chat and make sure we don't have any questions since we don't have someone on that right now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I want to welcome everybody. This is Linda Cocovizzo. I'm a parent of 2 blind children myself, and I have and I am also a blind parent. So I live in Kansas City, Missouri, and my children are actually 18 and 15 as of last Sunday. First, I wanted to welcome my friends and my co-hosts, Jennifer Carmack and Carla Kearns and Debbie Wonder, and welcome all of you. And I want to ask Carla now to go ahead and take the floor and introduce our special guest.
Hello, everybody. We are thrilled to have Carlton Walker joining us tonight. Carlton is from the state of Pennsylvania. She is the mother of a blind student who is scheduled to start college sometime when universities reopen. She is an attorney and a teacher.
Join the meeting.
And so she brings all 3 of those perspectives to her advocacy for her daughter, for other blind children, and to collaboration with the National Federation of the Blind. She's been involved with NFB for more than 15 years, I believe. She'll correct me.
Just last month I hit 15.
And we asked her to share with us some insights, particularly about distance learning and the altered learning environment that all of our children are working in, and how we can advocate best for our kids as parents today. Thank you for coming, Carlton.
Thank you. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about pretty much the most important thing in our lives, which is our children. And we know that education is a gateway into opportunities and future. So pretty much the most important thing for the most important people in our lives. Linda and Carla have been had asked me to talk about distance learning and also how the distance learning that was forced upon us all, how that's shaking out. First and foremost, school is not, IEPs are a plan of learning. They are a contract between the school and the family, and the school actually has all of the responsibilities under that contract. The child and the family really don't. And the school is promising to provide what's called free appropriate public education, FAPE, and that is best measured by what do non-disabled kids get. So if non-disabled kids get an hour of math a day, well, a child with a disability shouldn't get less than that, might need to get more because of the disability. And the free appropriate public education is, again, based on the regular ed curriculum, unless for some reason it's really not appropriate for the child. That's a pretty rare, well, not a rare circumstance, but blindness is never a reason for that. If there are other things going on, there may be reasons for that, but blindness itself is never a reason for that. But blindness is a reason for some additional instruction, because Schools have chosen to teach only print. You might laugh. Well, of course they have. Well, why have they? That's the choice they made. And because they made that choice, they have made the regular education curriculum inaccessible to blind children or children with low vision. But because of that choice, they must ameliorate the adverse impact of that choice and provide access to the curriculum. And they need to provide that access to the curriculum in an effective, efficient, and sustainable manner, just like they do for the non-disabled kids. Now, let's say that a school has no paper in it. Everything's audio. Nobody's writing on walls or paper or anything. Everything is all audio. Well, our children with hearing impairments and who are deaf may have some real problems in that kind of environment, but a blind child would not necessarily be able to say, well, that's not correct because it is FAPE. The sighted kids aren't getting any access to text either. I'm not saying I couldn't argue that out, but that's what FAPE is. So if everything's audio, then maybe it's okay, maybe, to have audio for blind kids. But that's never going to be the case. It never has been the case, at least. So our blind kids need to have access to text. I use the term text because print or braille starts getting into some value judgments. I'm just talking about text. And text is never audio. So we need to have access to text, to reading and writing. Why am I talking about that with distance learning? Aha, because distance learning, schools just kind of got a little wacky when they had to go to distance learning. Some schools, not all, some schools kind of threw out good educational theory, good educational practice, good educational materials. And honestly, some of them just went online and started pulling up worksheets from hither, thither, and yon and throwing it together and saying, hey, this is what the curriculum is now. Which is a shame because they had a good curriculum before. If COVID-19 hadn't occurred, I'm guessing they had something to do in March, April, and May. They had things going on, but because of that change in placement, they kind of got crazy. But they didn't need to. What we want is the curriculum, the FAPE. So in addition to FAPE, students with disabilities are also entitled to services that support the three purposes of the IDEA, the law that makes IEPs. And that is to prepare children for post-secondary education, post-secondary employment, and independent living. So that's where we come in with orientation mobility, for instance. Sure, a child could have somebody walk around with them all the time, but that's not terribly independent. That's not terribly age appropriate. And that's certainly not setting the child up for the future. So that's why we have all of these types of things that we know our students have a right to. They have a right to FAPE. They have a right to access to the regular education curriculum, unless for some reason, if there may be an intellectual disability, so the regular education curriculum may not be meaningful for the student, but the child has right to access to the alternate educational curriculum. Child has a right to be instructed in Braille, be instructed in cane travel, be instructed in accessible assistive technology. None of that changes. All of that is in place. All of our present levels, our strengths, our needs, our goals, our modifications, our accommodations, our testing accommodations, our supports to personnel, our services, our related services. We have all that settled before we ever talked about a placement. That's how an IEP is supposed to run. So changing the placement from 123 Main Street to an online platform doesn't throw everything else out. But like I said, a lot of schools, I don't know, they kind of lost it. It's been a stressful time for everybody, to be sure. But unfortunately, some kind of forgot what they were doing, forgot why they were doing it, and they were more concerned with the how than the why. And that's where we can really help and become partners with the school and help focus them back on what they did well. They did this well before COVID. They can do this well now. One of the questions posed to me, what are some ways we can work with IEP teams to make sure our kids receive the services they need? I've said this before COVID ever came along, tap into what I call educator DNA. Educators should want to educate. Tap into that part of them that does. Talk about, okay, well, sure, the third grade curriculum really got truncated here this year. Absolutely did. But what are the kinds of things that Joey needs to be able to hit the ground running in fourth grade? So let's focus on that type of thing. Or Joey didn't get Braille instruction until fairly recently, or he's just still learning how to touch type. Okay, well, those are some skills we know he needs. We can definitely do those in the distance education format. Here's a dirty little secret. Blindness education, we really were better suited to a distance format than many other disability areas because two things. One, the low instance nature of the disability. We have been having distance Braille instruction, distance O&M instruction, and a ton of distance accessible technology instruction for years. Now, certainly speech therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists have been doing that distance too, but not so much with the children. They've been doing that more in the adult sphere. But our kids have had this for years, primarily because of providers shortages, et cetera. So we have the technology. The other thing is, with regard to blindness, certainly with regard to accessible materials, if a school is doing the right thing, making sure that materials are in Word, have good styles, have good conventions used, we have alt pads on any graphics, then it's really not hard to get those into BRF, relatively not hard to get those into BRF Braille ready format for a refreshable Braille display or an embosser at home. So this shouldn't have been that hard if schools had been doing the right thing the whole time. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. Some issues that Missouri families and others are facing nationwide include materials being left at school. I've heard of families a child who is nonverbal and communicates through a switch. The switch is in the school building. And it boggles my mind because I would assume the custodians would be going into the school building at least once a week to determine if there's a leak, if water's running, if something else is going on. I'm sure there are people going in there. But schools are bureaucracies, and they tend to act like bureaucracies. And these children aren't getting their communication devices. Now, this is horrible, but this isn't a COVID-19 problem. Think about every weekend. Think about Christmas, Easter, every evening for that matter. That child didn't have his communication device anyway. So to a very large extent, COVID-19 has opened the door and let us view what the real problems were. And it's exacerbated the problem. Some problems are exacerbated. It has certainly highlighted problems that were already there. And that is a good thing because we might not have realized it was as much of a problem as it was. Some things that I'm really advocating for very hard are getting that accessible technology home every day. I want embossers in every home. I want laptops with JAWS and Duxbury in every home. I want a refreshable Braille display in every home, period. There's no reason not to do it. There's every reason to do it because our kids absolutely need it. The only display that will show more than one line at a time of Braille is called an embosser. Because you can print it. You could do it on Perkins too, But then we don't expect sighted kids to type out their worksheets so they can see more than one line at a time. I think that we shouldn't necessarily expect our blind kids to do it either. So we need to work with the educators, understand where they're coming from, but also share with them that we value what they have to offer, and we want our students to have that too. So we're telling them, this is a great curriculum. You are a good teacher. I want my child to learn from you. Please help my child do so. Kind of hard to argue when people are telling you you're good. No, my class is awful. They won't learn anything. You're not going to say that. So it's a good way to start getting that conversation going and hopefully tamping down some of the defensiveness that we may have. A big concern early on, it sounds like it probably still is a concern in Missouri, is no instruction. Schools hit this two ways. One, and give a little background. In September of 2017, the U.S. Department of Education had a kind of switch in its guidance, its technical guidance for schools. Before, it had said that school closures were not a reason to lose FAPE, so that even though schools were closed for the non-disabled kids with disabilities still had a right to FAPE. Well, in September of 2017, then September 2018, and then March of 2020, the U.S. Department of Ed issued guidance saying that if a school had nothing at all, completely closed, then it did not have to provide FAPE to kids with disabilities. There have been advocacy groups that have pushed back hard on that. And I understand and I don't disagree. However, I actually don't think that guidance is that bad, because what it says is if a school offers educational opportunities to non-disabled kids, it must offer FAPE to all kids with disabilities. A lot of schools have been kind of playing games with, these are optional activities. This won't be graded. These are enrichment activities. A rose still smells as sweet, no matter what we call it. It's an educational opportunity. And because of that, because they are doing that, they must provide FAPE to our kids. And not just FAPE on the little junky worksheets they downloaded from the internet, but FAPE, which includes those disability-specific skills our students need to be able to be ready for school in the fall. I have some documentations on that, and I'll be happy to share that with Carla and Linda, and please feel free to share those. So while schools might have been playing games with that, the games are pretty narrow, even if we accept that full closure, not providing nothing to anybody except for lunches, apparently. Except we're providing lunches, but we can't provide education. That bothers me. I think we should provide lunches, don't get me wrong. But golly gee willikers. Anyway, but once we're providing some educational opportunities for some, there were even schools that said, we'll provide it only for the seniors and nobody else. Well, guess what? You're providing it. So it's not just seniors with disabilities who get FAPE. Everybody with disability gets FAPE. They've opened that door. So that's where I would advise you to go and to work on that. Unfortunately, there are even in some schools are just not listening. I'm hearing no instruction, no accommodations, worksheets aren't provided in accessible formats, no related services, or related services that aren't effective for the child. Part of that is service provider hasn't done video probably before, and video instruction is different, and some children will interact with it better than others. And if the child doesn't, then that's probably not a terribly effective form. So we need to work on some alternatives. One big problem I have with that whole move to distance instruction was that when it was foisted upon the families, especially with their younger children, but even older ones, parents were put into a position of being unpaid paraprofessionals for teachers and related service providers. You need to help your child do this. You need to help your child do that. You need to be doing this. You need to be doing that. That's what a para does at school. That's great. But parents were working, taking care of other children, stressed out anyway. It was not a fair thing to do. And frankly, the IDEA provides that these services should be provided at no cost to the family. And enlisting a parent as an unpaid paraprofessional is a cost to the family. So that wasn't appropriate anyway. What are some solutions? Two big ones: extended school year and compensatory ed. Now there is a big group that doesn't like to use the term compensatory education because they think it sounds like the school's done something wrong. If your school officials are thin-skinned and they feel that, fine, don't call it compensatory ed. I don't see compensatory ed in that way. I see compensatory ed as there was something the child needed. For whatever reason, we didn't provide it. We didn't have the staffing at the time. We didn't realize it at the time. Maybe we were providing something like a large print and we realized later, gosh, this kid needed Braille. That doesn't, compensatory ed to me is not a pejorative. It does not mean something's negative. But if they can see it that way, then okay, let's not call it compensatory ed. Let's call it catching up education, right-sized education, whatever makes them happy, whatever doesn't get hackles raised, but the child still needs that education. And we need people who are qualified in distance education, who know how to interact with the child, who know how to provide quality services effectively, efficiently, and have good materials as well. The other thing is ESY, extended school year. Well, that sounds great, Carlton, except that some of the schools are saying they're not going to run ESY. And this is even when they're running other programs. Okay, again, just because they're supposed to do something legally doesn't mean they do it legally, sadly. Again, I think it's important to have a lot of communication. If you can't get through, if it's just not working, you can maybe see if you can talk to them. Well, hey, I have this great professional who I know does distance education. Would you contract with this person? Provide in writing options for them to have to refuse. You may not change their minds, but you're being polite and you're building a record. You're showing whoever is looking at it later, maybe it's a new special ed director in the future, cross fingers, somebody who might be more willing to change your mind. Maybe it's the superintendent. Maybe it's a mediator, due process, or a judge. But you're building that record and showing how reasonable you are. And also, you never know, it might click. I have some references. I don't do distance education directly to students. I have, but I don't do it right now. But I have some great people who do this as a profession, and they're exceptionally talented. So let me know, and I will be happy to share their contact information with you. And the other thing is to remember, ESY is not necessarily, it's summer. We think ESY is summer. It's not necessarily. ESY could be built in through the school year on Saturdays, on evenings. We can build an ESY. They can have their face-saving ESY, and our students still get what they need. But we need to have kind of a bird's eye view. What does this child need to be able to learn at home? Because we know there could be a second wave, there could be something else. Hurricanes, tornadoes, floods. I hate to say that, I'm not trying to be negative, but these things happen. There are lots of things that can close schools. So it's really important so that we are ready for what might occur. So let's look at the AT, the assistive technology. Let's look at the instruction, and let's look at what the child needs and make sure that we are ahead of the curve so we can be proactive instead of reactive. Are there any questions? idea what the dogs are. I don't know that. I'd tell you if I did.
That's funny. Well, Carlton, I want to thank you so much, and I want to encourage anybody who has questions or just a really quick, experience to offer with distance learning, that they had with their child. We're running up against the next section, but I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to
Linda.
yes.
So if someone has a question, we're asking that you raise your hand if possible. On the computer, you use Alt Y as in Yankee. On the iPhone, the option to raise your hand is under the More tab, and to do it on your phone, on your landline phone, is *9. You can also send a chat message, but we find raising hands to be most effective.
Yeah. I'm looking for hands. Oh, Amanda.
Yeah, which you partly know, Carlton, because I've messaged you recently, we are dealing with due process in this pandemic, which has been a joy. And we've gotten no services for one child and all the services for another child. So yeah, it's a mixed gamut, and I'm now SPED teacher in my state with alternative populations, and so it's especially frustrating when you know the law. But I guess I would reach out to you or anyone in the room for resources to fight our fight. We feel like we are probably going to end up in court, and we are struggling to find a lawyer that we can afford per se, or that will take a payment plan, or that will realize it's a civil rights issue, like not allowing a student in your district because they're blind is not okay.
Yeah, under multiple federal laws.
So, yeah.
I mean, the best, build a record. If it isn't, remember our little mantra, if it isn't in writing, it didn't happen. So make sure it's in writing, and really try to keep the focus on your child. Try to eliminate the word best from your from your vocabulary. Nothing, you do not deserve the best. Your child does not deserve the best. Your child deserves what's appropriate. What are the non-disabled kids getting? What is appropriate in light of my child's circumstances? That's our new Supreme Court, unanimous Supreme Court, by the way, in F decision. So we really want to look at the child, look at what's appropriate, and not what's appropriate because the child hasn't gotten decent education in 8 years. We're looking at what's appropriate for the child. And if the child hasn't gotten appropriate education, then that's what we need to fix. It doesn't have to be anybody's fault. Nobody has to be a bad guy, but we have to start doing the right thing.
Okay, thanks.
Before we move on real quick, does anybody have any other questions for Carlton? All right. Well, thank you very much, Carlton. And I hope that I don't know if you're planning on remaining on the call, but you're certainly welcome to.
Well, thank you. I would love to, but family duties call.
Yeah, I certainly understand that.
And I will shoot y'all some documents that may be helpful.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
So
Take
much,
care.
Carlton.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Our next section is in regards to those of you who have children who are blind and visually impaired the ages of birth to school age, because definitely in this situation those of you that had kids in preschool or whatever, probably struggling with the pandemic and being home and not having services and whatever, and then the birth, you know, just that whole gambit needs to be covered, and we definitely don't want to leave that group out, and we want to make sure that we can talk about and answer questions in regards to what keeps our kids interacting, what makes, you know, what do we need to do to cover all those bases for the little ones. So Jenny Carmack is going to begin this discussion, and we welcome your questions and comments throughout this, and I have a few other helpers with this too. So Jenny.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So I have 4 children, 2 grandchildren. My children have had a variety of different disabilities: intellectual, hearing, processing, speech. So I'm kind of familiar with many varieties of disabilities, and I have a degree in special education with my emphasis in early childhood. The birth to 5 age group is my area that I love. Not that I don't love all children, but that is my favorite age bracket, is the 0 to 5. And as far as parenting goes in that area, well, all areas, but that area too, is it's for every parent, no matter what their child's disability is or is not. It's learning process. Even if you're on child number 4, it's still a learning process. We all make mistakes. It's okay. But when it comes to children who are blind and visually impaired, sometimes there are more specialized, well, oftentimes there are more specialized questions that need to be addressed. Some questions I've heard as a parent advocate are, will my child learn facial expressions since they're not able to see my face? How do I connect with my child without eye contact? How do I help my child to be able to become mobile? What are some things to do for that? And a wide variety of other questions. And early childhood years is a topic that actually we could probably spend a whole weekend on and still not cover every aspect of. So where I think we should begin is maybe seeing what topics or age range that any of you would like to talk about or ask about. And there's, you know, others of us on this call that can answer besides just me, because there's usually more than one perspective or way to accomplish a task, or more than one answer to a question. So what I would like to know is if anybody has any questions or anywhere we'd like to start.
You know, I need to raise my hand, I guess. I'm trying to figure this out. Hold on.
Are you a co-host, Linda? If you are, you can't raise your hand.
Okay, I did that. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to keep my audio muted when I need to. But I did want to kind of give you a little bit of a place to start. And I think one of the things that I think I never really thought about much of, because I being a blind parent to 2 blind children, was the eye contact and the facial expressions and the, you know, when the parents have, you know, other children and they're used to pointing at things, and they're, or even the sign language and those kind of things. I think that would be a good place to start to cover.
Sure, I can talk about that. And then Linda, you or Carla could add to that with your own personal experiences if you would like. So what I say to parents, if they raise the concern about eye contact or visual gestures that typically sighted people use on a daily basis, is that, you know, it's still okay to do those things because they are natural for you. But the biggest thing is to talk to your child, like all the time. If you enter a room that your child's in, you weren't like, you walk into the living room, you would say, "Hi, Susie, mommy's here. I just came in the room." Or if you are maybe making their bottle and they're sitting in their high chair or something, you might describe what you're doing, that you're filling the bottle with the water and now you're scooping the formula in, and now I'm putting the lid back on the bottle and I'm going to shake it up. Just give them all of those verbal cues and verbal information that you can, because that's going to really be a benefit for your child. Plus, it will become habit after you've done it for like a week or 2 weeks. It's just going to be a habit if you do it all the time. And you'll probably start doing it to other people as well that you don't necessarily need to do that to. And touching your child is important. That's a great way to make a bond, other than just the eye contact part. That personal touch, holding your child, hugging your child, touching them when you're sitting next to them, and allowing them to explore through touch, explore, or, you know, to touch you, to explore things. Giving your child every experience possible. So when you talk about, we'll just use something simple, an apple, for example. If you have an apple and your child's like a year old, 2 years old, show them, let them see the apple. Don't just say an apple, it's red, it's round. Show them the apple, let them hold it, let them see what it's like while you're talking to them about the apple. And of course, we can't do that with every item because there's no way you're going to have an elephant in your house so they can see what an elephant looks like. So, but you may have a smaller, you know, farm animal, elephant, that they could explore. Those are some of the things that I talk to about parents as far as like giving them information that they would usually gain through visuals. And so, Carla or Linda, would you like to add to that?
This is Linda. I can say that I know that a lot of the literature that I saw and conversation that I saw when my kids were little was in regards to kids learn to talk by vision. And I never understood that myself because I grew up raised by blind parents. I am a blind parent. My children are blind, and obviously they have learned to talk quite well. You know, get them started and they're not going to stop. And that's been going on since they were little. Neither one of them ever had a speech issue. And that's not to, you know, say anything in specifically about any children who do. But the point is that I think that the visual part of it for talking, I would have to say would be, you know, there's probably some merit to it, but I would say that the fact that it is required would be a myth, because my children and I both, I think, speak as well as anyone else would. I think that's my input there.
Carla, would you like to
So,
add?
so I have a 6-year-old who is visually impaired, legally blind. And when we started early intervention, they really emphasized making sure that he got good orientation and mobility skills, became really mobile. And even though he sees pretty well, when we had a physical therapist and occupational therapist work with him, they really identified some fine motor skill deficits, some balance issues, and some physical hesitancy in exploring his environment that they worked with him for a long time on, to try to help him to navigate the world safely and comfortably. And he now looks like any other kid. Actually, when he fell off a sofa climbing up it about a year ago, his PT said, "Mission accomplished." So, and then the other thing that I wouldn't necessarily have thought of besides literacy, which I'll talk about in a second, is social skills and navigating a social environment. So it's another area that our kids need direct instruction in, making sure that they that not only do the adults around them introduce themselves and say when they're entering and leaving a room so that the kids don't find themselves alone and scared, but also for them to navigate the social world with their peers. They need direct narration, direct guidance to make sure that they are part of their classmates' experience. I was told when Russell was 2 that every day he would go out at the playground and stand at the edge and watch the other kids. But it wasn't until I got to talking to both his TVI and his O&M and his gen ed teachers that we really sat down to brainstorm how do we help make sure that he's included in activities with his classmates. You know, they're kicking a ball around the playground. There's no reason it can't be a ball with bells or a beeper ball. That doesn't change the experience for the other kids very much, but it really makes it an inclusive opportunity for all of them. And his preschool class included a nonverbal kid with autism and Russell, and we were deliberate in building an inclusion curriculum for everyone in the class so that his peers understood that they were all just kids, and that including everybody made it all more fun. And then the literacy piece. So for young kids in particular, I worry about our dual media readers more than I worry about our kids who are completely blind. And that sounds very strange, but I have heard it from many advocates over the years that kids who have decent functional vision, it's easy to underserve them until they start to fail in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade. And whereas for somebody who can't see at all, there's no debate about whether they need non-visual skills, whether they need Braille, whether they need technology and when they need it. I know everybody fights over. But I have found the colleagues in this room and throughout the NFB really incredibly valuable advocates for my son in helping us understand what does he need to be introduced to, when does he need it, how do we explain to a school that a kid who seems to look like the other kids is going to need to learn Braille, and how do we convince them that that's critical to his success without forcing him to reach the 4th or 5th grade and be unable to keep up. So I'll leave it at there and see what kinds of other questions do we have, what kinds of challenges are folks facing that we can think about and brainstorm.
Samantha has her hand raised.
All right, I agree. I'm Samantha Washington. My daughter is Amaya. She's going to be a senior this upcoming school year, which is a little scary. But I agree with everything everybody has said. In addition to having a daughter with a visual impairment, I'm a speech language pathologist that's worked in the public school setting for 12 years now. And I did my, not my undergrad, my graduate thesis was on language development in children with visual impairments, because at that time, Amaya was about 2 years old, 3 years old. And I was, curious about what is her language development going to be like, because she was a delayed language learner. She was delayed in speaking, and that's what I was interested in. And in my literature review and in my thesis, I found that this was back in 2008, that the literature was showing that children with visual impairments, they develop language the same as their typically developing peers. It's just delayed. It's just a little bit slower of a process, but they develop it in the same sequence as their typical peers. And then as Amaya has gotten older, and then I completed my doctorate in special education, I did my dissertation on teachers' perceptions of their ability to incorporate Braille into the general education classroom. And in my interviews with the teachers, their concerns were, how do I teach phonics? How do I teach literacy to these students? Because they're teaching it visually with print, and they were concerned that they weren't going to be able to meet the needs of their Braille readers when it came to phonics. That was like the number one thing that came up in all of the interviews that I did. And then Carla went on to talk about the pragmatic portion of language development. And I think that's one of the things that always has stuck out to me with Amaya, is that her pragmatic language skills have lacked, especially when, she's used to being, well, not necessarily used to being around other people with visual impairments, but most of her friends are the friends that she's met at KSSB or at Louisiana Center for the Blind. And of course, the majority of them either have no sight or very little sight. So when they're engaging with one another, they're not focused on facing the person that they're talking to. They're not making sure that their head is held up when they're talking, or that, those types of things are things that she's struggled with. And I've really had to explicitly teach and reinforce, constantly telling her, hold your head up, sit up, you need to look this way. Every once in a while, you need to, glance this way, when you're talking to someone. But now that she's a senior and I've gone, like Amanda was talking about, to the due process, I've done all of that, and grateful for the NFB for them being a wonderful resource for me. Now that Amaya is a senior, my new, not necessarily battle, my new concern and what I'm worried about is her transitioning to college. And is she ready for college? Because she hasn't gotten everything that she's needed to be successful in the public school setting. But now it's kind of, we're in a situation where, okay, we only have a year left. Do I continue to battle with the school, or do I do everything I can do in my power to make sure she's ready for college? And do, and find resources. So we've gone with White House for the Blind, where they come out once a month, and they do enrichment, activities and lessons with her at home on technology. And I'm asking, well, can you really focus on this, because this isn't what she's getting at school? And they've done wonderful with that. So I'm on the, I want to say it's not necessarily the downhill slope, but I've gone through most of the public school process, and I'm heading to a new chapter into preparing her for college.
Are they working on ADL, on the daily living skills like laundry and cooking and some of those things as well? Because those are things that, while the schools need to teach, it is harder to put that into the regular school day. So those are things that will be critical for her success to make it in college or a job or whatever she decides to do post-secondary education. That is absolutely critical that she has those skills and travel.
So the school has not really focused on that. She doesn't really have any goals on her IEP for that. However, her O&M instructor in the winter time, like if it's too cold to go out or it's snowing, or there's ice or whatever, they will generally do an indoor lesson, like a cooking or making something. And that's where, I kind of step in and try to, as the parent, incorporate and teach her those things at home. But of course, that's another thing that I think some of parents deal with too. It's, part of raising your child is that is the parent's responsibility to teach at home. But then when you have a child with the visual impairment, you don't always know what is the best way, and is there a better way to be explaining things. So it would be good to have the school support on that. Amaya's gotten a lot of her ADL instruction from Louisiana Center for the Blind when she's done their 2 summer programs, and then when she goes to KSSB. We haven't been able to tap into I know like Alpha Point has the virtual expanded core curriculum sessions. We haven't been able to do any of those yet this summer, but I do hope to soon be able to do some of those.
So I think we'll see if the panel has any suggestions for you, and then I'm sure we have a few more things to cover. So you have lots of great insight, and I'm sure people have some suggestions. So.
Amanda has her hand raised.
I just wanted to reach out to you, Samantha, about Amaya. Even though she graduates on a regular diploma, she still qualifies for continuing services up to age 21 with the school district. So whatever they were lacking before, they could fill in with transition services or like stay in an apartment at KSSB, or they technically, even though you still graduate, you can make a case for continuing ed up to 21.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is Linda. I will speak to that too. That's something we're strongly looking into for Sarah. She is a senior this year, and they can do what they call bank their diploma, and they can still walk with their class and celebrate their success as a high school student, but they can continue on, in a transition year, in any number of places. KSSB offers it, MSB offers it. There's just quite a few opportunities there for those kind of things.
Does that mean then that, so would she be able to still get those services and still take college classes? Or it would be completely just extending their high school years?
The program that I am looking at for Sarah is actually at KSSB, and there are 3 options. They can go on to college at I believe it's I want to say Kansas City Community College. This is right across from the school. Or they can do a VOC. There's a VOC program, I believe. I think it might be through the same college, but I can't remember. Or they can do job. They can do some type of employment. So you take, and I don't know how involved the school IEP team is with this, because I'm new to it also, but the IEP team basically becomes the team that involves you and anyone else that is doing the KSSP would be Sarah's IEP team.
Gary?
Gary?
Yeah, I can't raise my hand or I would have followed the rules. It doesn't let the host raise his hand. I was just going to say that one of the things I hope that everyone will consider is if there is enough distance between where your child is and where your child wants to be in terms of technology and daily living skills and social interaction, I'd take the break now and delay college and do some kind of residential center training, because I see a lot of people in the National Scholarship Program who go and they blow it. And by blowing it, I really mean that they try their very hardest the first year, but realize that blindness skills and social interaction and other things distract them so much from the academics that they then have to climb the rest of their college career out of uh, a place where it'll be almost impossible for them to have a good GPA. And so, however you choose to do it, I would think that you'd want to make sure that to the greatest extent possible, blindness skills are squared away before you send your child off someplace to college.
Thank you, Gary. That's a good point, and that kind of will segue me into the next section here. But I do want to make sure that on the topic of birth to school age, nobody else has any more questions or comments.
And I do just want to make one more closing comment. Not sure if anybody on here has children in the birth to 5 age, and maybe they do and just haven't said anything. I did want to just put out there that NFB has 2 really good programs for this age group. Actually, it's for birth to 8, both of them are. And it's the Early Explorers program, which is to help with children becoming independently able to travel. And then we have the Braille Reading Pals for literacy. And both of those are good programs, and both information for both of those can be found at the NFB.org website. And they're very easy to sign up for.
Thank you, Jenny, and I want to thank you again for hosting this half hour of our seminar. Very much appreciated, and with the experience that you have as a parent and as an educator. Speaking about, and I'll be looking for your input also on this too, as well as Debbie, and then Carla as a parent. The next topic is NFB and what's in it for me, because you think as a parent, a sighted parent of a blind child, you might not, where would you benefit from all of these meetings and all of these trips to conventions and blind parents of blind children seminars and Facebook invites and things like that. And I just have to say, as a blind person, NFB came into my life, and I came into NFB with the desire as a parent to open my children's world up to everything that NFB has to offer, because it's just, I've got quite a few notes here and it's just a never ending. I mean, Jenny's brought up a couple things that I didn't even get written down, so thank you, Jenny. There's just so much out there that NFB has to offer our children, but there's so much that I think the NFB and National Parents of Blind Children has to offer us as parents, because I've said it a million times and I'll continue to say it probably until everybody's tired of hearing it or not. But NFB, there's a saying that it takes a village to raise a child, and it's come to my attention that I needed that village long before I ever opened up to it. And NFB, National Organization of Parents of Blind Children, has basically become my village, and it's pushed me to reach out further and push my IEP team, my kids' IEP teams harder to get the services that they need, because it's real easy to become complacent, especially in my world, because I can say, well, I know how to teach them that, I'll just do it, but really, when it comes down to it, I don't have time. I don't have energy. I don't have all of all of the energy and time and patience that it takes to do that. And it's not really with my kids in the district. It isn't. It is my job to be a parent, but it's not my job to teach them some of those things that they just, they really need to get through their schooling, and to give them the technology that they need, and to, I can do quite a bit of that, but I can't do it all, and I needed that push. I needed that community that the parents brought to me. And it gives me a chance, it gives you a chance as a parent, to learn how to navigate that IEP system and to work with your teams to, in the right way to make, to make those things work for your kids, to get them the technology that they need, to get them the education that they need, to not be denied services, and to know what's out there, because we live in our worlds, and we don't know what all technology is out there, whether it's out of the box, or whether it's it's accessible out of the box, or whether we need another piece of software that makes it work, or we don't. Accessibility changes daily. I mean, it's a constant, it's constantly evolving. So, and then we have the opportunity as parents to share those experiences with each other, and to make sure that we're there to help each other out. So we've had these experiences now, and now we can help each other, and we can reach out to other families and show them the ropes, and make them feel a little bit less of that fear that comes with, am I doing this right? Am I making the right decisions? Am I giving my kids everything they need? And then as we meet together as parents, we bring our kids in, and we bring our kids into all of the programs and services that NFB offers. We bring our kids into all of the all of the connections with all of the other children, from young to older kids. We give everybody the chances to just get connected, and our families get connected, and lifelong friends have been made out of these parent and children connections. And I think probably any of you that has been involved long enough can speak to this. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up for a few comments and questions before I move on with some of the programs that I've got in these notes, whether they be summer programs or just programs that are available to us as parents and children. Am I still being heard? I don't know if everybody's still here.
You are being heard.
Okay.
Now, whether anybody's paying attention to you or not, I can't speak to that, Linda. But I thought it was a beautiful speech. It actually made me feel very good about putting lots of years into something that I sometimes wondered whether parents did appreciate.
I think you covered things so well. People don't have questions. I think you made lots of
Well,
excellent points.
I definitely appreciate that, and I wanted to move into a few of the programs that are.
Linda, can I just say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gary, when I met your friend David Strayer, Russell was 5 months old. And the first thing he said is, your kids are our kids. And I said, we don't know what he needs. And he said, don't worry about that. We'll take care of that. That's all I want to say.
And that's the other thing too, as a parent, we get an opportunity to see blind people in these situations from all different walks of life. And one of the parents put it pretty eloquently at the NOPBC last July in Vegas. We see the blind people that we want our children to follow the example, and we see some of the ones that we don't want them to follow the example of. We get a chance to introduce our children to successful blind adults, and we get introduced as parents to successful blind adults, that shows us that our children can live the lives they want and not let blindness define them.
This is Jenny. I just wanted to add something to what you were talking about, Linda. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So, 6 p.m. 5 notifications. So I am a totally blind person now, but 5 years ago, I had usable vision. I've always been legally blind, but I had quite a bit of usable vision. My son, who now is 13, but at the time was 9, he is sighted, but he became very scared when I lost my vision. Even though we've been in NFB since before he was ever born, he, I guess, didn't look around and think about all of the things that he saw people in NFB doing. And all I had to do for him to totally change things for him and his perspective of how things would be for me is to point out different people that he knew and to tell him some of their successes. And then he felt so much better just in that one conversation that, oh, it's going to be okay. These people do this and mom's going to be able to do her thing too. So I just wanted to share that support of NFB from my perspective too.
Well, and I've also heard countless stories about how siblings benefit, just from these connections too. There's been lifelong friends made out of, those connections also with other siblings and also, other blind children. So there's definitely something to be said for. I can understand that you would see all of this as your son, and then just all of a sudden mom's in that position too, and having it just kind of thrown at you like that would be quite daunting, especially for a child. Jenny, since you're here, Debbie, you're here, if either one of you want to speak about Bell, because Bell is one of the very extremely important programs, summer programs that is covered by our organization, by NFB, and it is this year. There are actually three programs because everything is virtual this year, and materials are being sent to families. And I know one of the programs, one of the sessions is actually full, but I think there might be room in some of the others, so it might be good to speak a little bit about Bell.
I'm not sure if Debbie's here or not, but Bell is a very awesome program. Braille Enrichment for Literacy and Learning Academy. Missouri has had Bell Academies for, I think this would be our 7th year. It's for children ages 4 to 12. We spend 2 weeks in a typical Bell focusing on Braille and other blindness related skills such as like O&M and adaptive daily living skills, socialization skills, and we try to make it fun. Half the time the kids don't even know they're learning something, but they are. But this year, because of COVID-19, we are doing it virtually. And so our national office has taken on putting on the Bell Academy, and local affiliates are providing support and mentorship for the families who join that. And we do have 2 sessions left, June 22nd to July 3rd and July 27th through August 7th. And registration for those is still open. And links for that can be found at our state webpage at NFBMO.org.
And also, as information is sent to us, I will be sending out information as far as some of these programs too.
Debbie, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? I tried to help you on mute. I don't know if it worked.
Oh, is she muted?
I know Debbie's trying to participate in 2 calls, so I don't know
Oh,
if that's part of, and she's trying to help a guide dog division call as well.
okay. Well, we can give Debbie an opportunity to speak later on anything that she might like to also, so that we can hear from her if she has that opportunity. One of the things that a lot of people might not be aware of too is the free Slate and Stylus program that NFB has, and in my notes I have links to that, so I'll be making sure that everybody has opportunity to see all those links to all these programs. But the Slate and Stylus is basically provided. It's in my description I have that it's a plastic slate, but it's 4 lines of, oh, let me get this right. I think it's 4 lines of 32 cells of Braille, and I do use a slate, so I should know this. But it's you can use a stylus basically to put labels on projects, or on school projects. You can put labels on cans. You can make all kinds of different things with the slate and stylus, and they're taking notes and all kinds of things. So if you are blind and visually impaired, or even like my younger daughter's big sister got herself one, and she was able to communicate back and forth with my younger daughter when I think she came into our lives when she was 8, and so it was very cool. She made her Christmas cards and all kinds of fun things. So, but you have, put the paper in, and you can actually Braille, and a lot of people unfortunately don't utilize this little piece of equipment anymore, but it doesn't require batteries, and you can put it in your purse, and you can put it in your pocket, and you can carry it around with you, and you can Braille anywhere you want to go. So it's just a great thing to have. So
and they're super durable. A friend of mine actually had a stylus get run over by at least one car, and it still works. The top is a little smashed, but the pointer part still works. And I have a friend of mine that I went to school with. She's sighted, and I taught her how to write grade 1 Braille, and we would pass notes back and forth.
Oh, nice.
And the teacher wanted to reach to take it one day, and then realized, wait, I can't read this out in front of the class and humiliate you because I can't read Braille. So I got away with it that once. I also used it when I was in school to label print papers that I was given by my teacher, so I could keep track of what I had, so I knew what I needed to attach my homework to. Or I also used it in a notebook to jot down homework assignments for the day. So there are lots of good reasons to use the slate. I don't use it nearly as much as I should, and I'm not my quote unquote penmanship with a slate isn't as good as with a Brailler, but I'm grateful that I know how to do it.
Another program offered by NFB is a free cane program, and I have a link to that also. And I wanted to create a nice little, cute little a PowerPoint or something to share my screen, but time was just not on my side. I think I got muted there for a second. Oop, muted again.
We can hear you, Linda. We can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, because it says I'm muted. Okay, that was weird. So anyway, but the cane program is just, the NFB's belief is that nobody should go without a cane, and it gives anybody an opportunity. It's a straight cane. It is not the most durable cane ever, but it's a free white cane, and I've got 3 of them sitting in my corner in case one of our canes breaks. We have a cane. It is a very awesome thing to have an extra backup cane all the time. I really appreciate that program, and I think it's definitely important. And they have from short canes to very, very long canes for anybody who ever might need a cane. So that program is available. Let me get back to my Braille because I'm totally losing my my spot here. The Action Fund for children and adults offers Braille materials and informational materials to children and to families and and to adults. They offer calendars, and I have a link on that too as well that I'll be sending out. The centers, the training centers, that was speaking to Gary's comment about making sure that your children have the best when it comes down to blindness skills, and their when they're done with school and their blindness skills need to meet the rest of their skills that they have learned in school, as far as their activities of daily living, their orientation and mobility, the Braille, the technology, social skills even, because sometimes, we get caught up with, you get up, you go to school, you come home, do your homework, go to bed, and connecting with those other kids in school doesn't always happen, because sometimes it's just hard to get that social thing going on with some of the sighted kids in school. And there's not all of the, not always all of the sports activities when your kids are in public school that they can participate in, or maybe they don't feel comfortable in the dances and the proms and those kind of things. So, those training centers are, there's like a whole, there's just so many different programs from ranging from about the age of 14 to the age of 21 for our kids that they can participate in. And there's the buddy program, and I think that's even younger. I think
I think that
some of
starts at
those
9, I think.
yeah, those started all the way back to 9. So and the buddy program is a 3-week program, at least the one that my daughter went to in Louisiana, and my younger daughter did. And then there's the STEP programs where it's kind of takes them on into high school, and where they can all get all connected with all of their peers and they do a lot of work on those blindness skills, but they also have a lot of fun. I know in Colorado they do rock climbing and river rafting, and they have outings, and they're constantly socializing, and those skills are extremely important, so that when your kiddo does go to college, and yeah, they're all kiddos, probably all of our kiddos up until they're the end of time, they go to college, they're ready for all of that stuff, and they have all those skills under their belt, like Gary was talking about. And checking my time here. Does anybody have any questions or comments about anything that I've spoken about?
Linda, I have a couple other opportunities to mention.
All right.
First of all, NFB here in Missouri has developed a good partnership with Wolfner Library. We work together, and we work in part, we promote each other's activities. And I know that this summer they're still offering their summer reading program. Most of you may know about that already, but it's a good way to get kids reading. Reading is very important, even in the summertime. I know that a lot of county libraries do things, and so the Wolfner Library is also running a summer reading program. And also, this isn't a summer program, but this fall in Missouri, we'll be having a STEM to You, which is just a STEM program. It'll be a one-day opportunity. It will be for kids who are upper elementary into high school ages. Planning is still underway for that, but we are looking forward to doing that. At this point, that is going to be in person. Also working on Plan B in case we have to do that virtually. But that should be exciting. A lot of kids in school sometimes don't get those science and math activities that our sighted kids get to take advantage of. And we want to bring that to Missouri and help kids gain independence and be able to advocate for themselves with their schools. And like, I can do these things. I've done them before. Let me show you. So we're excited for that. So I'll be watching for details on that to be coming out in the next few months.
Thank you, Jenny. That's much appreciated, and definitely Wolfner Library has been extremely awesome in helping us get our information out. So I definitely want to, glad that you decided to share that information also. I'm trying to concentrate on NFB stuff, but that's a very definitely good thing because I've gotten most of my connections through Wolfner this last year with parents and children. One thing I want to mention really fast before this is all said and done is, because I know we have another meeting heading in here very, very soon. National Convention, July 14th through, help me out, 18th, 19th. My dates aren't in my
18th,
head.
I believe.
18th.
18th.
There is a definitely a National Parents of Blind Children schedule. It's not completely figured out yet, but it's in the works. There will be definitely things out there for us parents, and there will be a youth track for our children. What are the ages on the youth track? Up to
Isn't it usually 11 to 18?
11 to 18, yeah. So we have definitely the youth track. I'm not sure if there's what exactly is going on for the younger group, but I do know that the Bell program is taking place, and usually it takes place there is one that takes place at convention, but I don't know if that's happening this year with the virtual part, but I will have to look into whether there's anything available for the younger, but there's definitely the youth track this year. And I think that this is a very creative group, and I think that they will do a world of things to make it exciting for our kids one way or the other. So I will be sending out a registration link for National Convention, also along with all of the things that I have to send out. Do we have any other questions, comments? What are we doing this summer? What are some of the parents doing this summer? The ideas that you have for us as far as being such a different summer for everybody? Anything that you might have to offer as information or things that you might be doing that we might not be aware of?
So some of the camps have switched to online in addition to Bell. Florida's Campabilities is going online in July, and it's open to anyone all over the country. KSSB is offering its traditional ESY online, although I have my questions about my 6-year-old paying attention to a screen for 3 hours a day. But it really is worth going to the folks who do traditionally offer summer programs and asking, do you have other suggestions? Do you have other resources? Are you going to do it online? Alpha Point is offering their in-person technology camp and their in-person overnight adventure camp, but they are canceling their day adventure camp. So the overnight camp is open to age 10 and up. But there's a lot of really creative work being done to try to help meet the needs of kids even through this crisis.
One to cover really fast. Our friends at APH. Got to find my last page. That's going to be a problem if I can't. But APH is offering programs, and at first I thought it was just 3 through 6th grade, but it's programs for everybody. And I do have that information that I will be sending out also, because there are programs for all ages. There's middle school and high school and so,
Linda,
yeah.
one of the ones that they do provide is it's called Braille Tales, like stories. They provide books, print/braille books for kids, I believe up to age 5. The nice thing about that is they'll provide it if you're a blind child, or in my case, I'm a blind parent of a sighted child. And so as long as there's a blind person in the home, whether it's the parent or the child, you can sign up for the program. And I believe every 3 months until they're like 5 or 8 or something, they'll receive a book that you keep, and then you can read to your child.
That's cool. This is the virtual Excel camp. I finally found the page. And this is through from mid-June to mid-August, and it covers okay, age groups. Okay, let's see. Sorry. Week June 15 and July 20, early elementary. Early elementary to grade 2, week of July 13 to, and August 17, not 2. July 13 and August 17. Upper elementary 3 to 6. And terrible at keeping my pages together. I should have put this together better. But anyway, basically it does cover everybody. And there are 2 weeks, and they're Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There are 2 sessions, and they are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and they have a live hour one of the days at 2 p.m. Eastern for everybody to participate in things. And I believe they'll be sending out materials also for the kids. So I am going to end my part now, because I need to open this up for the next session, unless anybody has any other questions or comments.
I see no hands.
I think everybody did a great job on their segments. I think you guys gave a lot of great information, and thank you for putting it all together. It was great.
Thank you, Daisha.
Shall
Thank you, everybody.
Shall I send this recording to the cloud now?
Yes, please.
Okay.